Okay. All right. So thanks everyone for joining us for the Get There Connect survey tool training. This is just another training in the series of Get There Connect trainings that we've been doing this year, just to familiarize you all with different features. And if I could, sorry, I'm easily distracted, have people mute themselves. I just hear some background noise. Okay. So jump forward here to meeting goals. Okay, so the purpose of today's meeting is to understand the purpose and benefits of using Get There Oregon's Eco Rules Survey, which is provided by ODOT in the RideAmigos tool. And then we're going to cover, we'll briefly cover that, and then the bulk of the presentation is understanding the actual survey tool, and then learning how to use the template that's already in there that can be used for eco surveys. And then we'll spend a little bit of time on understanding the options or the process for submitting results to fulfill program requirements. And I have a couple of examples from WTA to share with you, just to, for those who are not in the Portland area, to get you all to start thinking about the support that you can provide employers when the rules expand. So I think most of you know, but the eco rulemaking is underway, so there's going to be some updates for the Portland metro area, and then eventually it will expand statewide, so this will affect many of you. And I also think I forgot to introduce myself, but I think that many of you know me. I'm Sydney Cape, and I'm with Alta Planning and Design, but I Get There Oregon admin. Okay. So I basically just covered all of this, but we'll spend a little bit of time just talking about the bigger picture, and then most of it will be a demo of the survey tool itself and a high level of the submission process. We will have some time, and then Anna's going to cover next steps and how this is going to tie into some future work that we're doing. We have some time for questions, but I just want to make it clear that I'm not an eco survey expert. I do know about the use of the tool, but if you have specific eco survey questions, I think we'll write them down and connect you with Hope. Okay, so I know that many of you know this, but just want to quickly cover that the current requirements are for employers in the Portland metro area with more than 100 employees, and that's requiring employers to provide commute options designed to reduce the number of cars driven to work. And that also requires employers to survey their employees to demonstrate progress towards a 10% commute trip reduction goal. And it requires a 75% response rate to the survey for compliance. I'm gonna put in the chat, I think some of you all are familiar with this, but the DEQ page with eco requirements and more details there, which I will mention again later. Okay, so moving on to RideAmigos survey feature. So there are many survey tools out there. The one that we use most is SurveyMonkey, and I think that's a great tool, but RideAmigos offers a similar survey tool that's maybe not quite as user-friendly and doesn't have all the features, but there are definitely benefits to using it. And so one is that it could be the standard survey platform across the state. So once you all start supporting with eco surveys, it would be just kind of a standardized process. And it also, which this is what Anna will cover at the end, it can feed into a custom reporting tool that's being developed by ODOT. So again, that will just kind of standardize the way that we're collecting information and reporting on it. More on that to come. And then another key point is it will encourage more employees to establish accounts in Get There Connect. It's not a requirement to create a Get There Connect account in order to take a survey from the RideAmigos survey tool, but it brings you into kind of that window, and then I think when you complete the survey, it redirects you to Get There Connect, and so it's just more exposure to employees. There also is an option to require people to create an account. So anyways, it's more exposure, and of course that's important because it encourages more people to explore their options. It increases the pool of carpool matches. The more people using it, the more people are posting carpools, and the more successful finding a carpool is. And then just increases overall engagement with our program. So anyone who is a network manager in Get There Connect, so that can even be employers who have set up custom networks, have access to the survey tool. And there's a screenshot here, but I'm sure you all have noticed it in your manage drop down. It's just under tools and it says surveys. And then for the template that I referred to, so again, this is something that ODOT worked directly with RideAmigos to get this already set up as a template in the survey tool so that it's easy to access and start a survey from. So you don't have to pull in all of your questions and everything. You can get started quickly from that. And so to find that, like I said, you go to manage surveys, and I'll show you all this in a minute, but in the top right corner, there's this survey templates button, and the eco survey is called New ODOT Commuter Survey. We can consider maybe a more clear name. I don't know if that's super obvious, but anyways, the last one in the list. And then there's tools to edit and preview your survey, just like SurveyMonkey. So that's what I'm about to show you now. I guess also a good time to pause here just to see if there are any questions. Okay, so Marnie asks, neither the employer or employee need to get their account. So if the employer is setting up the survey themselves, then they do need an account to do that. And then they get the survey link and they can send it out, and their employees do not need to create an account to take the survey. But if you're in a situation where you are the partner who's kind of putting this together on behalf of the employer, then you can just use your permissions to set up the survey and then share that link directly with them. Can we require registration for everyone who fills out the survey? So yes, Kim, that is an option. I don't really feel like I can speak to this, but I wouldn't recommend that for eco surveys because you need to get that completion rate, and you don't want to add another barrier. But Kim, we had a recent conversation talking about how that's actually can be a useful strategy for challenges. So you can tie in the survey tool with challenges, which I can touch briefly on as we get into those settings. If employers get access to doing their own eco surveys, will we lose connection to working with them? Well, so employers will always have access to doing their own eco surveys, right? So that's already kind of built in. I think that us having this access to this tool along with the custom reporting tool that we'll talk about, it's a really easy selling point to make those connections with employers and tell them that you can make this process really easy on them and really do a lot of the work. So I don't think the introduction of this option is going to change relationships with employers. Okay, let me get out of here. Yeah.
Sydney, I think there was one more question, which was, can you send the link through Get There directly to members of a network?
Yes, great question. You can absolutely do that. And I will kind of demo that. I'll show you how to do it. But yeah, that's an excellent option to reach especially if you have a really active network. That's a no-brainer for a way to distribute it. Okay, so Anna, can you nod if you can see my dashboard? Okay, thank you. So I'm just in my dashboard here. I'm going to click the manage button. Again, I'm an admin, so I have a few more drop downs than maybe some of you do, but either way, it's the survey option is in the tools column. So I'm going to click here. And then you all would not see these surveys in here. You would only see surveys that you've created, but I see a few just from other network managers that have created some. I can see new surveys, open surveys, and closed surveys. But all we really care about right now is the survey templates that I mentioned and the new ODOT commuter survey. So I'm going to click into here and just show you the different options. And then I'm going to hop over to a test survey that I had already created. So you enter a survey title. When I created one, I called it Sydney's test survey, but this could be, you know, the employer name and eco survey or transportation or commute survey. Survey network. Also, I'm going to go ahead and share a quick link with you. So RideAmigos Academy is helpful per usual with stuff like this. And so I just sent you a link for creating and editing a survey, which kind of describes all of these settings and what they mean. So when you're setting up a survey, I definitely recommend kind of reading through that. So you can select a survey network. So this is going to be, if you're the partner setting up the survey, I would recommend just choosing your network. If it were an employer, they would choose their network. But that doesn't limit people in different networks from taking the survey if they have the survey link. You can enter location information. It's not required. Here's more of the important stuff. So this top toggle, this is what we were just talking about, require user to be logged in. So like I said, I don't necessarily recommend that. I mean, it would be great if we had everyone who takes the survey create a Get There Connect account, but adding an additional barrier isn't recommended. But you'll see a note right here that says this option should be checked if the survey is to be used as a challenge opt-in survey. So I just want to share a quick unrelated to eco survey side note that if you are, and Kim, if you don't mind if I share kind of your use case for this, but there are options for if you're setting up a challenge and you want to collect more information from people, you can actually select a toggle in your challenge setup that requires requires users to opt in, and then you can link a survey to that. So in Kim's case, she was hoping to get people, thank you for the check mark confirmation, Kim. She was hoping to gain more information about people's employers. Basically, she wants to know where they work for the purpose of her rewards program. But she had a bunch of people who were participating in her challenge that were using like Gmail accounts, so she couldn't link them to their employer. So I recommended to her for a future challenge, she could set it up, require an opt-in, which yes is an additional step, but people then opt into the challenge and then a survey pops up that they're required to take. So it could be really simple where you just say, who's your employer? And that's it. And then they can proceed with participating in the challenge. But just a lesser known way, I think, to collect more information to people and just build engagement with your challenges. But that's more of a side note. So number of people being surveyed. I don't think that you have to be super accurate here, but obviously if you are an employer, you generally know how many people, how many employees you have. So entering that information, and then I think partners kind of have access to that information too. You can ask them internal notes. If you have multiple admin or managers that are taking a look at the survey, then you can leave some notes here. A survey success message. So just thanking people for taking the survey, maybe giving them more information about how it's going to be used, or if you're doing a drawing, when the drawing's going to happen, and then potentially redirecting people to Get There Connect is an option, or your resource page. So you can select a language, which just means that all of the built-in text will be translated, but it would be on you or the employer to translate the actual questions, because right now we just have those in English, but I'm sure that could be a future update, is including Spanish survey questions. Okay, so I'm going to hop back out to the test survey that I had sent up. So basically I went through and entered all the information that I just mentioned to all of you. And so now I pressed save, and now I have this survey. It automatically creates a survey link and a QR code. So you can copy this and just show you quickly what it looks like to the user. So pretty basic. We'll talk more about the questions in a minute, but I just wanted to kind of give you a peek of what it looks like here. So going back over here, you can also, by the way, I didn't edit or add any additional questions. These questions that I'm previewing right here are the ones that are included in the ODOT survey. So I think that when this was created, I think TriMet advised on additional questions to use, but for the purpose of the eco survey, the only requirement is this kind of trip diary question. So pretty simple and minimal ask of employees. However, we've included, because it's a great opportunity, I was talking to Caitlin from WTA about this, it's a great opportunity to just collect more information from employees. If they're going to take the survey to begin with, not a big deal to just add in a couple more questions. And so for our purposes, it's really interesting to know why people are driving alone. If they select driving alone, what's the reason for that? So there's several options here to learn more about that choice. And then another question about, if you drive alone to work, what benefits would encourage you to try an alternative to driving alone to work? So just learning about people's motivations and potential recommendations for an employer program. If everyone here is selecting incentives, then maybe it's time to consider an incentive program. And then there's the TriMet specific question here that, again, TriMet advised on this, but that's not necessary for other parts of the state in the future. And then a zip code question. So yeah, pretty simple. You can edit questions in this. So here's the overview with the details. Then you can preview it just like you can in SurveyMonkey. And then you can edit questions. So I wanted to briefly touch on this because it's a little bit clunky, the way that this is set up. But to add a new question, you click on Add New Survey Content. And then you get this drop down of different types of question styles. So, radio buttons, check boxes, matrix. I believe in the RideAmigos link I sent you, there's a guide somewhere that explains the differences between all of these questions, but I'm just going to show you a quick example with the radio question. So I selected that and it appears all the way on the bottom here. So there's a field name, which it says right here, that's just for reporting purposes. So this isn't what's seen by the survey taker. So I'm going to ask a question about incentives just as an example. So I'm just going to call it incentives. Field key, also just going to call it incentives. You can say if it's required or not. I'm going to have this be an optional question, not required. And then I'm just going to ask which incentives would be most attractive to you. Probably not phrased well, but just an example. And so I'll include a few options, gift cards, cash, swag. So then I have these 3 things. I can X out if I change my mind, close edit. So that's now included as one of my questions. If I go to preview survey, it's down here at the very bottom. And you can drag things, you can rearrange. Again, it's not quite as user-friendly as maybe SurveyMonkey, but it works very similarly. So once you have your survey set up, and it could be as easy as just using the template and being done with it, then you can distribute this link or the QR code. So that could be sharing it with the employer to distribute via their internal communications. It could be sending a direct email to the network through Get There Connect, which if there's time at the end, maybe I'll go and do that, but that's a different location in the management dashboard. So that's going to a user report, and then you can send, or a network report, and then you can send an email from there and just include the link or include a whole write-up with the link. And then once you go into the survey after you've started sending out the link, you can take a quick look at survey responses. So I had submitted a few responses just for the purposes of this example. You can choose which columns are visible. You can, the scrolling's a little weird here because a lot of it gets cut off, but here are just the simple responses. And then of course you can generate a report, which is a CSV. So it, as an Excel file, I mean, it looks pretty much just like this, but you have the options to sort, filter. It's a little bit easier to use. So I definitely recommend exporting to take a look at your data and then doing the analysis. But again, hopefully this custom reporting tool that I'll mention later, or that Anna will mention later, will work directly with this CSV file. Okay, so I'll pause there. Kim has a possibly silly question. Currently, does the survey get completed by just ETCs, one point of contact at a work site, or is it expected that employees take them individually? It is expected that employees take them individually. So that's where that 75% response rate comes in. You'll see when I head back to my slides, you'll see what is submitted to DEQ, at least right now for the Portland area. And employers have to do a little calculation of here's the number of employees, and here's how many people have taken the survey to prove that you've achieved that response rate. how will the data get interpreted and submitted to DEQ? That's next in my presentation. So if there are no more questions specifically about using the survey tool, then I'll go ahead and move on.
Hey, Sydney, I have one more question.
Yeah.
What about the modalities for the using the survey? Is it available on a phone or SMS messaging or things like that, tablets?
Yeah, good question. I haven't tested it on everything. I would assume that it's mobile friendly because, you know, Get There Connect is mobile friendly. RideAmigos has made that kind of a standard across all features. So definitely mobile and desktop. And then in terms of, and then I assume it would be the same for tablet, but I'm not really sure beyond that.
Thank you. I have one other question too, and maybe this is for the next session, but it could be in this one too. And I'm curious how they track who has surveyed in terms of getting that 75% response rate and contacting people who haven't surveyed yet.
The employer tracking who has taken the survey.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's a great question because as it stands, the survey does not include contact information. And so if people, and yeah, this is where I'm a little fuzzy, and maybe Caitlin could potentially speak to this if she's here.
I'm here if you want me to say something.
Yeah. Do you have any experience with like tracking who's actually taking the survey and then following up with those who haven't, or is it more like just a broad blast that you and the employers do to get that response rate?
Yeah, so it depends on the employer. So some of them do have me put in like either an ID number or like an email to keep track, and I try and make it clear that that'll be separated from their answers when like I send it to the company. But it does, I mean, I do get comments that say like, why are you asking me my ID number? This is, supposed to be anonymous, whatever. So like, it's a double-edged sword. So like you do get the benefit of being able to like not bug people if they've already taken it, but also you might not get like, super honest answers in comment sections or whatever. So you can weigh that as needed.
Yeah.
Okay, so
part of it might be employer preference.
Yeah.
So you can track by names or ID numbers or emails then, just based on preference.
Yeah, you could definitely add a question for that to I guess to capture the email. I'll look into if there's something in here that tracks if there's like an ID associated with them.
Well, and part of my curiosity too is I believe WashDOT is using this RideAmigos survey platform too, right? And I thought that they also had a method before with their previous survey where they could track based on email and also had the ability, if people opted in, to email those folks who hadn't surveyed yet as well.
Okay.
I don't know if they still have that option with the new RideAmigos platform, but that's
good
for
question.
people who want to do that, that's a pretty great idea.
Yeah, I'm sure we can reach out to someone there. I know they just started using this, so it would be interesting to hear a little bit more about some downfalls or lessons learned as they make that transition. Michelle?
Darren had one of the questions I was worried about is like duplicate responses, so that maybe you can set it so that the IP can't be taking it twice. And then another thing that through the years, we've always omitted Sunday and Saturday travel. ODOT didn't want that. Can we just omit it from the survey, from the template?
Yes, you can edit the questions in the template. So yes,
Okay.
you could remove that. I can't speak to DEQ requirements for that though.
Okay, because I was assuming that everybody's supposed to have the same template, so they're comparing apples to apples across businesses, but there's certain questions that we tack on, like, have you heard about van pool? Can we talk to you about carpooling options? All that type of information. So I feel like it's important to have contact information on those surveys rather than just, it's the only way we know how to reach out to those people who go, yes, I'm interested, and then you don't know who
Right.
they are.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think if it's made clear, because like Caitlin said, some employees have concerns about, you know, an anonymous survey or whatever asking for their contact information. So maybe if it's just made really clear, you know, this will only be used to follow up with you about your interest in programs or something like that. And then I'll look into, or I'll ask RideAmigos about the IP address with talking about duplicate responses if you don't collect contact info. I know that that's a built-in feature for SurveyMonkey, so
Yeah.
it seems like it.
Sometimes the HR people will just send it out again. Hey, we haven't reached our 75%. And so people
Yeah.
just take it again, and
Yeah.
then you're not really getting clean data that way.
Right. And some people might even just forget that they took it.
Exactly. So, okay, there was another question too, but I got lost in all of it. It'll come back to me.
Okay, just let me know.
Thanks.
Sydney, I had kind of a related question you might have covered, but can you speak to the ability to add required versus optional questions?
Oh yeah. So let me get out of here, back to the survey. So when you edit questions, so here are all the questions included in here. Let's go down to this. So I just chose a random one in the template. There is a checkbox right here to require it or not. And so I'm pretty sure for the template, only the trip diary questions are marked as required because that is the requirement. The others are not, but again, up to you if you feel like you really want that information. And if people are taking the survey, you might as well get some more details from them. Okay, I see some chat activity. I don't know if these are questions. I think we covered that. Okay. All right. So I did want to briefly touch, and again, I'm not an expert, but on submitting the results. Obviously, that's an important step of the process. So I talked to Caitlin a little bit about this just because WTA has so much experience, but usually, so my question was, is it the employers that must submit the results, or can TO partners do that on their behalf? And at least as it stands, like for WTA, they have the option to submit it on the employer's behalf. In most cases, the employer will go ahead and submit it themselves, but part of WTA's offering or their service is to submit it to their contact at DEQ and just CC the employer. So it at least as of now with the current rules, it's not really strict on who specifically is submitting it. So then I wanted to show you the format. So on that an original link that I sent with the DEQ information, they include this eco survey worksheet. So this is as basic as it gets for what employers need to submit. So just details about the company, the response rate calculation that I mentioned, and then tallying the trip diary information, and then submit it by email or mail. So that's that's the bare minimum. So what I want to share with you is that as TO partners that will eventually be support, or if you already are supporting the effort, or if you will eventually be supporting the effort, there are more details that you can provide the employer so that they have more information to go off for actually creating these programs. So first, I did just want to show you an example of WTA's basic DEQ report. So this is what they submit to DEQ. It's similar information, but just a little looks nicer and includes the chart there, and still minimal information, but just a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. And then there's also, pulling in another WTA example here. So they also create this full report where, you just saw this is the main information, but then they have these charts to summarize the responses to the additional questions. So Caitlin, correct me if I'm wrong, and then additional comments too, if there's an open-ended question. But Caitlin, this is simply for the employer. Is that correct? Not DEQ?
Yeah, exactly. Just the first page is DEQ.
Yeah. So this is just a way to give the employer a little bit more information. And like I was saying, if people are really interested in incentives, that becomes really clear to them, and then they can maybe start thinking about a related program, or get involved with more WTA services in this case. So from there, in terms of compliance and DEQ, it's interesting because it's not super clear what DEQ does with the information, but sounds like it's added to a database, which great. And then the employers are required, once they do their first survey, that's then their baseline, and then when they complete future reports, then it's then compared to that baseline. But there's not, I think everyone here knows that there's not a lot of teeth currently in the process for compliance checks, or really making sure that the employers are following through on their trip reduction plan. So that's hopefully going to change with the future rules and the expansion. But I also did want to just show you the WTA's example of a trip reduction plan for the company, and this feeds directly into what Anna's going to talk about next with the custom reporting tool. But a summary from the eco survey results. Again, this modal breakdown, calculation of baseline and target auto trip rates, programs currently in use, and then the real meat of it is new options to be implemented at the work site. So these are recommendations taken from those additional questions in the survey about, suggest, and just, local knowledge and experience about what would make the most sense for, in this case, generic logo company. And then there's some timeline information down here, just recommended when to implement. Yeah, Darren.
Hey, Sydney, is what you're showing here specific to the WTA, or is this an integration of the trip reduction plan that will be part of this platform?
No, so this is specific for WTA, but this is, it's a similar concept to what we're hoping that our custom reporting tool will spit out. So again, Anna will mention that in a minute, but this is specifically what WTA has put together, and I'm really showing it as an example of what partner support can look like beyond just creating the survey and providing a link, kind of the additional steps and really holding the employer's hand for their trip reduction plan, and you know, helping them actually make that happen. So I think this is a good point to shift to what Anna's going to cover, because it is directly related to that. So I'll pass it.
Okay. Thanks, Sydney. Yeah, and hi, everybody. I think I know most everyone here, but I'm Anna Gore with Alta Planning and Design, and also the project manager of the consultant team for Get There. So yeah, and I don't have a lot of details to share right now yet, because it's kind of early stages on this project. And I know Sydney just kind of covered what is existing and out there, which is the survey tool and Get There, which you're able to use really right now. It's up and running and ready for you. But in the near future, Alta is going to be working to develop a custom reporting tool that basically takes the survey information, inputs that, and our goal is to have it generate a summary similar to what you saw from WTA that's appropriate. Well, one thing would be what's appropriate to send to DEQ. So to make that process easier, taking the employee survey results and then generating a summary report just that can be sent either by the employer or the provider to DEQ. And then the other piece is to have a more robust report. So similar in spirit to what you just saw from WTA, that includes commute trip reduction recommendations for the employer based on that survey result, and potentially other factors that we'll be discussing as well. So I know when we were thinking about this, it could be that we let PO providers give a little bit more information or context that they know about the employer that could be used in formulating this, the recommendations that would be generated. So again, this is early stages. Right now, we're just in the process of coming up with a work plan for this. I know an early step is going to be to get with folks to get input from partners. We are going to develop this initially for TO partners to use in the metro region, since the ECO rule is already affecting employers there. And then the idea is once the ECO rule expands, we would expand the tool and make it available to anyone else. But yeah, basically we'll be seeking input from partners to help us develop this. So if you are interested in being part of that conversation, let me or Sydney know. You can email me directly or Sydney directly. We'll make sure to yeah, get in touch with you when the time comes to get some input and get your feedback on the direction we're going with this. So I'll pause there and see if anyone has any questions about that. I see, Caitlin, your comment that a trip reduction plan can be very simple. And yeah, I can say for the custom reporting tool, part of the vision is for us to pre-populate some amount of recommendations based on the data, but knowing that the local TO partners are the experts. So we want to make it editable. So at some stage, the idea is these recommendations will be populated and the TO partner can go in and custom edit it for the employer. So adding more detail about local options that are most relevant to them. And, you know, we're considering this like a report as opposed to a plan, but, you know, you could take this report and feed it right into a more detailed plan that gets into some of the things that you saw in Caitlin and WTAs with the timeline for the project and that type of thing. So, Darren, did you have a question?
Yeah, I'm curious, and maybe this is too early to answer this question, but in terms of data storage and access, what would access look like for partners? Would it just be, you know, data, or would there be access, or would it be just data for the networks they work with, or what does that look like in terms of accessing data for the employers that we work with?
The vision, and Sydney can jump in on this if you've talked somewhat to our developer about this already, but we do want to make sure that if a TO partner is like inputting data and generating these reports, that you have access to it in the future. We're not planning to make it publicly available to all, like, you know, if you import something, it'd be for you to use with your employers, not necessarily all partners across the region. That makes sense. But the idea is you could be able to get back in there. Let's say you generated a report and want to tweak something or adjust something, you'd be able to get in and access it again. That'd be safe for you. So some sort of system to do that.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then I see a question in the chat. How do we edit the existing response options in the template questions? Is that oh, is that regarding the survey itself, or are you talking about the tool? And Sydney, I think you might have. Oh, go ahead, Sydney.
Yeah. Looks
Is
like
our sound working?
yes.
So it's just, right now it says, like, one of the options is bus, TriMet, or Max. And
Right.
that.
Yep.
So I can't see a way to actually change that.
So I believe, I don't know, I believe you should see exactly what I'm seeing here, but one note on that for when this is statewide, I can see us having, I don't think this question will necessarily be there. We might have like a version that doesn't have it because obviously that's not a statewide question, but you should just be able to click delete here, or if you want to just edit it to match to talk about your transit system, for example, then you should be able to do that.
The trip options, it was like walk, bike, bus, Max, transit, but you can't actually change those. It's pulling it from some back end that I don't think I have access to.
Here, here, let me go to the preview survey.
No, it's in the options up, like click on that. So now if you go back.
Good question.
And it's the one question Monday or question Sunday, choose one of those.
Yeah.
It's pulling it from the field key or from somewhere.
Yeah, you're right. I think that I'll have to see if I can actually edit that myself, but that might just be part of the template. But again, we would make sure that that's not the case for when you're using it. But I'll look into see if that can be edited directly, but I'm not certain. I'm not seeing it. All right, any other questions? I do believe this will be first of multiple trainings related to this. This is just kind of the kickoff for talking about this, but I think that obviously as we get closer to the rules being finalized and everything, this will be a major focus of partner trainings. But I'll say if you have interest in using the survey tool, or even just kind of, or maybe using the challenge feature that I had mentioned, just feel free to let me know. I'm happy to hop on a call with you and answer any questions or help you set it up. And we are recording this, and we'll send it out to the group and probably include it on the For Partners page too. All right, thanks everyone. Have a good rest of your week.
Thanks, Sydney.
Thank you.